Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan Kolb, and I would like to welcome you today to another Credit Safe webinar. So today we are going to be talking about the value of healthy data. Data is kind of beyond a buzzword at this point. It is a critical nature, a critical point of business in every and any type of business. And we're fortunate enough today to have Richard Gleed here with me to talk about this. And Richard is the product and development director for new markets for the US and Asia Pacific Credit Safe Group. Big long title to means he is a very, very busy guy that deals with our data all the time. And Richard has a long background for more than 15 years experience in the business information industry. He's led global teams throughout periods of dramatic changes, processes, technology updates, people updates, personnel updates, and has spent the last 10 years focusing on delivering innovative and robust data solutions to both internal and external customers through the use of cutting edge technologies. So it's been my fortune to work with Richard on multiple occasions over the last several years. And I'm glad to have him, I think, for the first time on the webinars. Is that right, Richard? This is your first time?
That's correct, Nathan. Thank you for having me. I think I owe you a better picture for next time, because it's been a while since I've been able to fit into that suit. But
you do look a little different now, but that's okay. At least you got the memo with the checked salmon-colored, pink-colored shirt here. So we're on the same page, even though it is your first time, which it's long overdue having you on this.
Happy to be here.
So, I want to kind of set the stage as we go into this, Richard, and talk about this. This word data, it is such a huge topic, a huge thing. I mean, we have entire industries, we have entire jobs, careers based around this idea of data. So for the purpose of this webinar and for what you're going to be talking about, can you give me an idea of what data means in this area?
Yeah, I think, it's important to understand when you say data, that means things to different people. You've already said that there's whole roles now which are built around the word data. If you look at an organization, you look at myself, when you ask me about data, I'm, in my role as a product and data director, I'm first thinking about, what data we're taking in from third parties, external sources and things like that. But then I also start thinking about, well, I need to know how my customers are using our products. That information is vital to me. And then also the data that our customers are providing us, so we can assess that. So, that's just one role. And we've already kind of covered a huge amount of data. There's obviously other roles in in the company, things like HR departments, which will have who's employed, what are their benefits? Are they attending, there's benefits with regards to health, records, which is obviously very sensitive information, and also quite important that that's correct. Finance needing kind of real-time view of data, with regards to how much money is coming in, how much money is going out, to help them plan with forecasting. Sales and marketing, you'd know this better than anybody. You want to know how successful the stuff you are doing, each initiative. We also want to know, which products are successful, which individuals are successful. It just doesn't stop. And really, pretty much everything within your company ended up coming down to a data item, really, somewhere, which somebody normally will be looking for to be able to answer a question, really. In recent years, I would say, I say recent, maybe I'm showing my age here now, but, we can see that there's been a definite shift with regards to the attitude of companies with data. They've started seeing this as an important strategic opportunity, really. It's even seen, I think we've all seen enough Netflix and things like that, where we start talking about data as an asset now. It helps us be able to kind of make data-driven decisions, really. I think, regardless what data means to you, we've certainly all become reliant on it to allow us to perform our jobs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think all you have to do is spend about 5 minutes on the internet or 5 minutes on any of your favorite apps, and you're going to see those targeted ads and those type of things. And that's all we know. It's all coming from the data. But we're going to talk about it in a slightly different role, especially being, credit safe and B2B and credit and finance. So in that regard, this idea of data health and data strength is critical, but why? Why is that so important in this regard?
Yeah, and I think, I think when we say data health, it's probably important to kind of talk about what data health is. Okay. And I won't go into the intricacies of it, but it will be called multiple things. You would use the term data health because you're probably from a more sales and marketing background, which that appeals to the majority of people. They understand what the health of something is. When you start to get to kind of data people like myself, we start using buzzwords because it makes us feel clever. So we're saying things like integrity, quality, trusted data. They're all gonna, and anybody who is from a slightly tech background will hate me for saying it, but they do kind of boil down to the same thing, really. Mm-hmm. In layman's terms, we're talking about grading the data within a company. So we can understand it, its strengths, its weaknesses. So when we're using that data, we're making informed decisions. Data has issues. It's inherently going to have problems, in its collection and everything. That's not a problem itself. It's understanding those problems and knowing that when making those decisions and being informed is the important part, really. I looked around and I kind of obviously today I was looking for a few little snippets. And according to Gartner research, the average financial impact of poor data quality on organizations is $9.7 million per year, which to me, I don't know how that works when we're talking about smaller organizations, but then you scroll on a little bit and then you see that IBM have got a different stat, and it basically is $3.1 trillion is lost by US businesses alone. But basically it comes down to it's going to cost, that's why it's important, because you're making decisions which is costing you money at the lowest level, really, but it can also have more real world implications. If you're using that for critical decisions, it can become, real life and death situations, really. So that's why data health or data quality is important.
Sure.
We're relying on it to do our jobs, and poor data health will cost us money. And, the other thing about data health and importance is that, we're sometimes required by law to keep good data health, and sure. That can really cost us money from the point of you can be penalized for having poor data health or insecure data, etc.
Right. So we're talking more than just main street versus main road and those type of things. We're talking about some deeper level things that are really gonna determine the decisions that a company makes. Correct? It's not just this guy spells Jeff with one F versus two Fs type thing.
Yeah, it can be, if you don't have a full understanding of the data, a decision which could cost, we're not talking about a package not making it to somebody. We're talking about you could be making a strategic decision which, could have a major impact on your business, basically.
Right. So when we're talking about this, I mean, obviously we need to know where we stand. If we're gonna look at that to start out with, if I'm running a company and I haven't had an issue, my packages make it to the right place, nobody's yelled at me for not holding the right thing down, I seem to get the right phone number when I call, or whatever measure I'm using, how do I know if my data is healthy or not?
Yeah, I think, we've already discussed that data is a pretty hot topic at the moment.
Sure.
If you put in data quality, data health, things like that, you're going to get thousands of articles of companies advising you on how to do this. But there is kind of a core, 5 kind of metrics which companies are using really to measure how their data quality is there, and where it is, if it's good or bad, really. And I think, that is important to be able to know where you stand to be able to know where you go in the future, really. Mm-hmm. But one of the things they'll talk about is you will see everywhere, which is record completeness or attribute completeness.
Okay.
This is one metric, which is, I think a good explanation would be if you have a sales database or sales data, you don't have all your sales in there. So you don't have, you don't have a complete record of all your sales at that point. So you're basing that data, or that that data is incomplete, really. And then we could change that to, it could be a attribute of that sale. So it could be, okay, we don't know what our payment terms are on that sale. So we go more granular, and attribute completeness is more complex, but just knowing that you've got a complete, complete set of data is going to be valuable. If you know that there's certain records missing from your data set, if I switch this now to credit safe kind of environment,
Sure.
and we start talking about bankruptcy data, that's when completeness becomes very vital to me. I need to know that I've got every company which is going bankrupt. If
Sure.
I'm getting a data set from somebody and they just start not sending me a complete data set, then that means that I've got a company which is potentially bankrupt and I've not been informed of it, which can be disastrous, really. Right. So, completeness is one of them.
Now, let me just break in there. When we're talking about that, are we talking about every possible data point we could get from a company? Does every company need to know everything they can possibly know? Or is there kind of a set by set type thing that they need to know?
I think you're aiming for something to be as complete as it possibly can be. So it's really understanding at this point, which is vital. I think the most worrying thing would be not knowing how complete a data set is, because then you don't know how to use it. If you know that data set is potentially, say, let's go back to the sales thing. If we know that it contains, 90% of your sales, but the other 10% is over in somewhere else, then you probably look at combining those two data sets to give you a complete understanding. Sure. If you just took it on the value of, that is my complete sales, and it isn't, then that's when you're going to be making mistakes, because you're going to be basing decisions on non-complete data.
Okay. All right. So that was number one. You said there's 5. So let's see what else we got here.
So then we've got kind of accuracy. I think everybody kind of understands the accuracy of data. You touched on it earlier. You ring a phone number, it rings because it is correct. You send an email that it's active. So, that's would be when I'm talking about kind of accuracy of that and things like that,
Right.
Pretty basic metric. You can put metrics in place to check that. When you send out an email campaign, you're getting the bounce backs. What you want to be doing is obviously measuring those. And then also, looking at, doing something with that afterwards, not just ignoring it and carrying on. You want to be chaining this into a cleansing process of some sort, so you don't continuously end up, you want to fix those records, basically.
You can do that internally, or you can use a third-party data that can be help with that accuracy check as well, correct? Where you could do kind of your entire portfolio at once.
Yeah, that is correct. What I would say there's, when you're looking at, which we're almost kind of jumping into the next questions, but,
sure.
I think, you can always look at a combination of process improvements, people, and then when we're starting to use things like technology, which is obviously you could be sending that data to a third party to enhance that, and have a process to update that data.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's 1 and 2.
Okay. Consistency. This one's a bit more complex, but it also is not kind of rocket science, really, when you look at it. We all know that we copy different parts of data into different systems. And the problem is keeping those systems synchronized. So consistency is all about making sure, we might have our accountancy database, our sales database, and we're pulling data from multiple systems to get a true picture. And sometimes we're copying data into different databases, but there could be lag. There could be just that it's fallen out of sync, that somebody's updated it in one place, we haven't updated it in the other. that is, one of the main issues that you'll face within a business, is consistency, ensuring you don't end up with two different answers to the question, depending on who you're asking it. If I go to somebody who runs one database and say, how many customers we got? And they say, well, according to billing, we've got this many customers. And then you go to the other, to the product manager who looks after your access to your website. And they say, well, I've got this many customers. And actually, if I was to say how many customers have used the product in recent years, I'm giving you this number. You're ending up with all these same question, lots of different answers. So you want to try and keep consistency across platforms, really.
Okay, that makes sense.
Are we ready for number 4?
Go for it.
So then we've got validity of data. This comes down to, it's similar to accuracy, but it's kind of stuff you can do is like, so you give me a telephone number, I can tell you I can tell you the majority of times whether it's valid by looking at the format of it, kind of thing. I can look at it and be like, okay, I believe it's 10 digits in the US. I could be like, well, okay, that looks right. It's all numbers for a start. That looks right. So it's data validation, is a date in a certain format, like making sure that these things are there, address data, we touched on that earlier, making sure if you've got a state and it's for the US, that it's in a list of known states, really. So, that doesn't tell you the data is actually factually correct, but it tells you at least meets a valid format that you could say, okay, but that looks like a phone number. We don't know until we ring it if it is actually still in service, but at least it would conform with the standards we would expect there.
And this is where on a lot of websites or things like that we might use all the time, you have to put it in a certain way or it gives you an error message or something. Well, is that kind of where that's coming from?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's important with that is that, wherever you're capturing your data from, that you are putting those validation constraints in place at that point. So, that could be from, like you said, an online form, making sure that they have a state list or something, making sure that the phone numbers, but that could also be that you've taken data from a third party and you've applied those checks to that third parties to ensure it meets your business validation rules. Right. So you're not going to allow a phone number with letters in it. Although I think about that and you probably could have a 1-800, one of that, but typically you could say, well, I don't want those. I want you to convert proper numbers, and that's how I'm going to keep my data in a good way, basically. So yeah, validity is a big one. And the last one I've got here is timeliness of data, really. As we know, data is constantly changing.
Yes.
And it could be that, for example, somebody changes their name and address or something, and in your systems, it's not correct. So you want to be getting timely updates to that data. But it also applies to using the use of data in decisions, really. So, if I wanted to do a strategy for a new product or for a product, and I was basing that on data from a year ago, that wouldn't be timely data because, I'm making the assumption that nothing has changed in that year. And I think based on the last year we've had, that would be a bit of a mistake to make, really.
Sure.
So we need to look at, is the data you're using there in your decisions, is it timely with regards to that as well?
Right. Yeah, I think this last year is a great example of that, of folks working from home or working from a remote location, and all of a sudden you can't pick up the mail at the office and those type of things, that having to change that. So, and we know the data degrades over time with just, like you said, people change positions, the different things change. So I think that one makes a lot of sense. So, we've got these things that they seem pretty simple. You've got these 5 these 5 areas. I don't want to say they're attributes, but you got these 5 areas of, completeness, accuracy. Help me out. The other 3.
Consistency, validity, and timeliness. Yes.
All right. So consistency, validity, and timeliness as well. So we've got those. And so what are the real problems then? If that's all we've got to do, mainly, if we can keep those 5 things in line, Where are the problem points? Where are the pain points?
The problem is probably coming from, newer companies which start with a strategy now of data is important have less problems. So the majority of these problems come from kind of historic systems and things like that. Technology previously would have restrained us in a way that now we don't have as many problems. So that is one of the things, the main common problems people have is they have something called technical debt. They don't start off in this brand new world where they're kind of like, if we designed this all fantastically, we wouldn't have any issues. We'd put it all in one database. That database is just, the problem is that over time, and generally because companies are trying to move quickly and be innovative, they've made kind of decisions where they end up with data in silos. So, the HR system, which has all your staff in it, doesn't really talk to all your other systems and stuff. And you end up with all these data silos where you have to do individual reporting on each system, or what typically companies are trying to do is they're trying to break down those silos. They're trying to do some kind of a data warehouse, call it what you want. There's different approaches to it, but they're trying to basically integrate those databases to each other. So you kind of end up with a central place which holds all your data effectively. Okay. So, that's one of the big problem is that every company, unless you've done an amazing job, you're going to have data silos. You're going to have data in a place where it's not easily combined with other data. So that's one problem. Another one, I guess, is, with regards to constraints we're given, which can create data silos. So, for example, there is certain data which is, got privacy regulations in place, so it has to be stored in a certain way. So that might not fit in with trying to combine it with other data, or it might have to be protected so that people can't access it easily, even encrypted. There's data sovereignty where you have to store data in certain countries and it cannot leave those shores. US postal data is one of those, really. So, that can cause problems because it can't be combined in with other data. You're going to end up with a situation where you end up with data quality issues, really. Okay. We touched on consistency, which is synchronization. So this would be where you have duplication of data and it's not synchronized. So you end up with the two different answers.
Sure, two different systems or something that aren't giving you two different answers to the same question.
Yep, that's right. And then you quite often, because of these data silos or independent systems, you end up with, the same person, or let's just say same customer. It has two kind of unique identifiers in each system. And you've then got no way of really joining those systems together. So you've got to do a lot. One of the biggest things that most companies have to do is try to match one data set with another data set. And there's plenty of tools out there to do that, but it's, you've then got to start saying, okay, if I've got my prospects database, but then I also have a separate database of customers, how do I ensure that I don't have my customers in my sales database and they keep on being contacted and things like that, and there's management processes you need to put in place to kind of make sure that you can avoid issues like that by making sure that you do link your records together, basically. And we've talked about this previously in one of them as well, where it was kind of the validity here, where you're allowing people to maybe enter free text or something like that, where, a good one would be, you talked about having a company address in there and you've got 3 different ways to, abbreviations for names and stuff. And when then that causes problems with trying to then match those, because you've got to do a standardization on that address before it becomes common enough to match easily, really. So those are some of the common problems, but there's probably we could be here for quite a while going on.
Right. Well, I mean, even just simple things like, my name's Nathan. So did they put Nathan? Did they put Nate? Did they put Nat? What did they put in? Doesn't matter what I like to be called. What do they put in? And then all of a sudden they're all different.
And I guess the worst thing would be is typically, but what I'm talking about there is what they would have is they would have a name field instead of having what should really be is a title. In the US, you'd call it first name, and then you'd have middle name, and then you'd have last name.
Last name, right.
Yeah, trying to avoid the British.
Yeah, that's right.
So, rather that is a lot easier when they're separate to do comparison and piece it back together. Whereas if it was just in one field, we've got to try and separate that out to try and put it into appropriate fields, which is part of cleansing and standardizing that data.
Sure. Well, and you brought up a kind of as a joke, but you brought up a good point there too of, if you're working with even another native, same language speaking company or across, divisions of your company or what have you, you can have different ways of talking about things. Working for CreditSafe, I see it daily of what the UK will do or what England will do or what, whatever, we've got, Ireland and the UK and the Europe and a lot of English speakers, but we all say it differently.
Yeah.
And that can be one of those confusing things too, I would assume.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. If you're talking about it, I used to have a few head scratches over here when I used to say about surname and stuff, and mention that when I first came over here. But I'm slowly adapting, really. So
we're Americanizing you a little bit here. So if we've got these issues and everything, what can be done to fix them? I mean, obviously, each company is specific. Each data set is specific. And that's why you get paid to do what you do and deal with things here. And you have a staff of people to do it. But in generality, what are kind of those general rules of thumb that people can do to ensure and to fix their data health?
Well, I think the first thing is understanding where you're at, really, sure. As in and there's different ways to do that. You could put in some of the metrics we've talked about and start kind of understanding your data sets and everything. There's tools out there called data profiling tools, which you could put in. You could load your customer database into it, and then it could tell you, well, this is the address field or the state field. These are all the possible permutations we've got of those. So you can obviously look at that field by field and assess, have you got bad data in there? Is there a state in there which just doesn't exist in the real world? There is a lot of tools out there that can help you do that. But the other thing is you can, if you're lucky enough to have data analysts, getting them to do some quality work on those data sets and then putting in constraints in place will fix the data and also put it into a position where it can't reoccur, basically. So, it's not about just, cleaning up the mess. It's also about stopping that from happening again and putting those rules in place to stop that, really. But, I think it is important to really understand, well, what problems is your data causing you? Because really that's going to be where you need to be looking at what are you trying to achieve? Because it's all good to say, well, we want really clean data, but what it must, I'm guessing that has come from somebody needing or saying this is causing me a problem. We're getting 10% of lost orders. We're getting complaint, something along the lines of that, which is driving you to just kind of want to improve your data quality. It's either going to be hindering you in some way, causing you a problem or stopping you from achieving something that you want to do, really. So I think it's important that you're laying out that, really. I think one of the big things I'm starting to see really is who, and again, this is if you're lucky enough, if you work in a large enough organization, is who's going to be responsible for this? The problem is that, as we've already talked about, you've got probably quite a few systems and different databases in that. There needs to be somebody who overall really is taking that responsibility of data quality across the whole organization. that's really where we're seeing the birth of these people, various names for the role, but really they're trying to get the data kind of synchronized across every department, trying to use a data model to do that. But if it sits with each individual people, unless there's somebody still linking that person up, or that team up, so they're all following a certain strategy, you're going to get people going and doing things their different ways, which is part of the problem you're already in already, really. So
Right.
I would definitely say, making sure that somebody, if you're lucky enough to taking somebody to take responsibility for that, and that doesn't have to be their sole job responsibility, but just to have somebody who's responsible for all your data health across the organization is worthwhile, really.
Sure.
And I think we've said, there's different things we can be doing. We could be doing kind of, for example, we talked about completeness earlier, and it could be just a simple process change. When we're processing a sale, we need to make sure that we have a valid email address and phone number for that customer. So when processing that sale, we want to do that. We also want to then say, we're going to get something which will email them once every 3 months. And if it is invalid, that will feed into a process to go and update that information. And we'll also ensure that we're calling that number every so often, so that we know that we have the latest up-to-date information. So simple kind of process improvements can help you keep data quality high, but also improve it over time. It's not something that you need to do immediately. You can do that over time, but just making small changes in your processes, really.
Yeah.
I guess one of the other ones then is obviously kind of the technology changes. This is where you start to kind of pull data all into one place, so you can look at it in a single point of view. There's even going to be lovely buzzwords at the moment around AI and machine learning to help you with data quality and spot data quality issues out there. There is a lot of platforms out there now which are starting to go into that kind of area. And, I would say that is one of the other things you could be looking at doing is, looking at some of these companies out there whose complete and utter focus is around data quality. If you really don't know where to start, speaking to companies who are, helping with data quality on a day-to-day basis, they will be able to help you formulate a strategy. We do that at Credit Safe, where we, people send us their customer data and we will show them the inaccuracies in that. There are companies who do that from every aspect of, data quality, not just with regards to company data, but everything. And they will also put in a technology plan to help with that, really.
Right. And we actually had a question about that. So if you want to talk about that a little bit more, they asked, just kind of how do we validate this and do that? So, I mean, just explain that a little bit more, because you're already talking about it. So from a credit, we can just talk from Credit Safe's perspective, but from any perspective in that regard, if we're using that third party, how do we help out? How does that help out? How does that process kind of look and work?
Well, I think it's really, again, you've got to set out with what we're trying to achieve here, kind of thing. If it is as simple as, when we're sent data, what we're looking to do, we will append our own data to that. So what we will do is we'll take that data, match it to our own. We'll give them how we came up with that match. So, we'll tell them whether that's a really strong match or a weak match, so they can use that information appropriately. And then, we're going to give them back what we believe the name and address to be, so we've standardized our names and addresses and things like that. We also can then append other data for them to have back, really. So when we're talking data quality, it could be things like what industry is that company in, what is the size of that company. So we're basically matching their data to our own data, and then we're appending our attributes for them to look and see, is that a data attribute that they want to use in their system, which could help them assess, if they think a company has 3 employees, but we're saying it's 100, they could be looking at that information and then using that to improve their data quality.
Absolutely. And that goes into the decision-making process, right? I mean, that's that's informing all your decisions, whether it be, from a credit safe perspective on credit being offered, or, options on credit limits and those type of things, to just, do we even want to take this person on as a customer, so on and so forth, correct?
Yeah, well, that's it. Obviously, our data is not related just to customers. We hold a database on all the companies, well, in the US, as many companies as possible, but also internationally. So, this data is used for onboarding, for prospecting, for various reasons.
Yeah, M&A, new markets, all those type of things. And that just goes, again, it speaks to why we need to have that health be so important, or quality or integrity or whatever buzzword that you wanted to use, on those, that is just solid and doing that. Now, for companies who have never really paid attention to this, you had mentioned that there's some there's some advantages to being a younger or newer company in this, but for some older companies that haven't really paid attention to this, is there advice you have that can help them with this?
I think the fact that they're starting to understand that they maybe should be doing something is the first step, I guess, really.
Sure.
You really want to be kind of looking at, what is, I think it goes back to, again, is what problems is this causing you? And where do you want to start, I guess, is taking list of all your data assets and all your data areas, and kind of maybe starting to do health checks on those. Like I said, a little bit of Googling will find you kind of tools. It depends on how big your organization is. You can do this for very kind of low cost, where there is tools out there which are free. And then when you start to get into the kind of billions of rows of data, that's going to be where you're going to actually, same with credit safe, where we have to pay for those tools, because those don't come for free, unfortunately.
Right.
But yeah, it's really starting to see, if it is something you're taking seriously, starting writing down what your problems are, and then start discussing them as a group. You should, I'm guessing, if you've got IT people, would be a good start to discuss it with. But it is important to it not just be an IT problem. This is something you want to achieve across your whole business, and something that IT people alone are not going to do, because they're not going to know the context of that. So it's important that, this is involvement from the business is needed to know what they want to achieve.
Yeah, so this is a full thing. Everybody kind of has to have some part in it, whether it's the you had said a salesperson, instead of just asking for, oh, just give me the address I can send an invoice to, it's let's make sure we've got the email and phone number, or if we only get email and phone number, let's make sure we get an address, those type of things, all the way through to customer service and collections and finance, and every kind of level all has to kind of take part in this, correct?
Yep. Yeah, I think we're starting to see a lot more kind of like I said, things have changed in, I wouldn't say recent years, but you're starting to see CEOs now who are, all their decisions are through data driven. And
Right.
so that a lot of the time now, you're starting to see kind of directives coming from that level. They're saying we need to do these things because, because I need to be able to have the right information, accurate information to make my decisions. Whereas previously it was probably from the bottom up, we're trying to kind of say, we should be doing this better. I think we've gone past that now, where it's really more people are, aware of the benefits of this, and it is coming from higher up, really, which is a lot better, because it means you've already got the backing there to do this stuff, really.
Sure. Well, and with that being the case, there's this idea out there, this buzzword or this position or this thing out there, that is it is very technical. I'm not going to lie, but the idea of master data management, how does that play into this discussion? How does that actually inform this?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head there. Really, master data management is a reasonably complex kind of discussion, really, but it's definitely something that can help you with data quality issues. It's an approach which can help you achieve data uniformity across your business, basically. So all the problems where I was talking to you before, which allows you to kind of get rid of those silos and put your data into one place to know that's where your true answer is. That's, in simple terms, MDM.
Right.
You know, really, it's kind of like having an employee where we're in a payroll system, we're in a HR system, we're in a training system, and an expense management system. But it's all the same person with different data maybe stored in different places. It's trying to, you know, extract that data from there into a single place so that it knows that you updated in that one place, and those systems feed off that one place rather than it being kind of the other way around. But it is also, I'm not going to pretend that it's just quite as simple as that, really. But maybe that's the next webinar then, Nathan.
There we go. You know, that's it. I'm always looking for topics for other webinars, and I think we'll have one here in the future on. I didn't even know we could call it MDM, so we'll, you know, a new term for me. We'll play it out there. But Richard, you know, we've kind of covered all of this. We've covered the questions that have been asked. We're doing everything here, folks. If you have a last minute question, please throw it in here right now. But you know, this idea, at the end of the day, it's super critical, and every business at this point has to pay attention to it, or they're kind of losing pace with everybody else. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, to underestimate the importance of it, it's just going to cost you money. You know, like that's what you're seeing when you're basically Googling it. It's going to cost you a lot of money to underestimate the importance of data, really.
Sure. Awesome. Well, Richard, I just want to say thank you for this. It's been a great kind of primer and introduction to this topic. I know we're going to be doing more about it. If folks are interested in more, the very next thing about this actually is what we call a portfolio review, which is going to be looking at large data sets of your customers, your suppliers, your partners, your different things, and seeing not only the health of them, but what state are they in, you know, as a group. How does this look? What are areas of trends and things we can look at? We're actually talking about that on Thursday. So 2 days from now, March 25th at 2 p.m., we'll be talking about that. So you guys can go ahead and register for that at creditsafe.com/webinars, or you can email me. But we also have other data management and stuff coming up in the late Q2 and early Q3. So I know we'll have you back on. I know we're going to have some other folks talking about this. So if you're interested in any of that, please make sure to check the website and make sure to register for those webinars as they come available. But Richard, again, thank you so much. It was great to have you on for your first time, and I know there'll be more in future.
Thanks for having me. I'll get you a new photo for the next time.
Sounds good. Folks, thanks for hanging with us and enjoying this. Thanks for the questions, and we will see you next time on Thursday. Have a great one, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.